Colorado has joined the Big 12. We felt this was coming. I mean, it's kind of been talked about. People have been huffing and buffing about it. There's another rumor that another team will be joining them as well. I'm assuming from the Pac-12, unless it's BYU is part of the Pac-12, which is just, and this is all happening next year, 2024. So they would be down, as of now, 3, possibly 4 schools. The Pac-12 is just falling apart at its seams. I don't know. I mean, if you really think Oregon, Washington, and Washington State, and Arizona State can keep the and Utah can keep it together. If I'm those schools, I don't want to be the last guy on the ship. I don't want to be the last one sinking, right? I mean, we were talking before the show, the Pac-12 is basically going to be the All-American Conference at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be the West Coast version of what we had on the East Coast with the UCF, with Tulsa, but just the conference that it would be on, on a Friday night, and you'd like, all right, I'll watch a little bit of this. Like Marshall, those guys.
My question is, what's the credit, the credentials to be a Power 5 conference? Could they even consider themselves a Power 5 anymore?
See, I think in we've talked about that, and I'll let Soder jump in on this one because he's had a point that I thought was pretty good on this as well. But I think in order to even be considered a Power 5 conference, you are required to have a conference championship. That would be if I was running the NCAA, which they're doing a great job at doing that.
But the MAC has a conference championship.
But you would also need to have 3 teams finish in the top 25 or 2 teams. So you come up with a standard of 3 teams in the top 30.
You're suggesting this. This isn't a rule.
This is not a rule.
You're thinking like how soccer is.
Yeah, so you could potentially get relegated at a Power 5, and maybe potentially you have somebody move up.
My question for you, though, was what is it now? There isn't any regulations. It's almost like a grandfathered in kind of thing.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's mostly TV deals and the amount of revenue that they bring in.
Which they don't
have that anymore.
Yeah, so their Pac-12 is Conference USA. Like everyone's agreeing with this, and I think like it has to happen because here, especially with the playoffs happening next year, or is it next year, right? Yeah, next year. You have the playoffs happening next year, and now next year you are taking 3. I mean, Colorado's in a major school to the Pac-12. They're the worst team in the Pac-12 currently, but it's a big brand right now. It's probably their biggest brand because of what's going on with Prime. And then there's a rumor another school, probably going to be a BYU or a Utah, is kind of what's being rumored around. If I'm Utah, I'm deuces. I'm out this B. You can't tell me that Pac-12 championship carries the same weight as any of the other 4 championships. And if I'm in the Pac-12, it's like, look, there is a pro because it's like all I got to do is win this bitch, but nobody else in that conference is going to have any weight. And is there going to be enough teams left? How many teams are there now? 10?
They got to be down to the 9-10 range. I mean, with the other 2 leaving to go to the Big 10. Yeah, and now you've got Colorado leaving.
I mean, the
BYU, by the way, BYU is already in the Big 10 or the Big 12. They're already there. I thought BYU was in the PAC. They're not.
They're already in the Big 12.
They're already in the Big 12.
Oh, okay.
So Utah's in the PAC.
So Utah,
BYU went the other way. The same that
Big 12 is going to be wild. I mean, you got Cincinnati, UCF,
Houston,
Colorado. I mean, Houston's already there, but I mean, the Big 12 is going to be a completely new, landscape. And look, that it's honestly now going to be a conference that was the Conference USA. It's just they all kind of like built themselves up, and it's like, nah, we're big dogs.
Well, yeah, let's not forget that West Virginia's in that conference, and that was a long time ago that they were in the Big East with Miami, and those were that all broke up too. You remember the Big East? Yeah.
Remember basketball? I remember them being good at basketball. I don't remember them being really good at football.
I'm just happy that when Colorado moves, they'll have the best defense in that conference.
He loves it.
He's beating on that drum. Look, it's let's see. Muddy says SMU, Colorado State, and San Diego State are going to replace USC, UCLA, and Deion Sanders University. That's their replacement. SMU, Colorado State, and San Diego State University. My point though is how can now, like, I think we have a point where we're talking about like Premier League in soccer, where if you don't meet the standard, you get the boot, because now you've just muddied the waters, pun intended, of the Pac-12 with the quality of football teams. It's an absolute joke. It's always been a joke, but now it's even more a joke. It's been carried by the USC. You can't even say UCLA. Don't even hit me with that. It's been carried by Oregon, USC, and as of late, Utah. But
you still have Washington. right? You still have Washington State.
I said what I said.
And then you're forgetting the Arizona schools who have
Said
had
what I said.
who have had a couple of
They
pop
do
up
look
years.
those schools do well in
Pop up
basketball.
years, but they don't stay consistent.
Sure.